Okay, thank you. Welcome to my second episode of the Season Opener Race Weekend blog. This first race of the season is going to tell me a lot of things, most of which revolve around me and how I compare against this new group of racers. So let's look at that. I'm now at a racing age of 69, and we have a lot of new people that have aged up into the 65 category. There are 13 that are signed up for this race, and there's quite a few that I've never seen before. One of those new that have aged up is a teammate of mine, Steve M. Steve is a strong flatland rider, and I'm more of a climber. And that combination helped us determine how we were going to play our tactics, particularly when it came to the dominant team, Penn Velo. Now, they weren't only dominant because they had 4 riders out of 13. 2 of the riders were district champion capable people, and probably are district champions. There was a 3rd rider whom I've never met before. He's very strong. And then the 4th rider, he's just strong. The rider that you saw that just jumped, that's Matt Peters, Team Body Concepts. He did the same thing last year, and he was out for most of the race, and he actually ended up 2nd place. That is fresh in his mind, but it shouldn't be, because last year he had the dominant team, with about a third of the field being his teammates. The tactics Steve and I are using are the following. With Penn Velo being the strongest team, we are not going to go anywhere unless Penn Velo is there. So in other words, if they attack, then one of us has to be with them. If they bridge up to a break, then one of us has to be with them. If there's a break without them in it, then Steve and I are going to stay put. Lastly, because this race ends on a significant climb, it's Steve's primary responsibility to cover the breaks, and I am his backup. So in that case, that means if he is out on a break with another Penn Velo and they're brought back, then another Penn Velo counters, I'm supposed to cover that. Jumping to the 9-mile mark of this 48-mile race, we had just finished the surge, and on the right side in the yellow and orange up there, that's the Penn Velo colors. He's going to the front, and then he's going to attack. At this point, Steve is behind me, so I'm electing not to make a move to go after him. It's early in the race. This could be considered a risky move, but, I don't know these guys. They could be exceedingly strong. Jumping ahead just a bit, the pack was just letting him go. Now the attacks are coming. Editor's note. I can tell my telemetry is not as good as I wanted it to be. It seems to be a couple seconds behind. Pretty much we're all lined out, and I'm just looking to get on a wheel. I don't know if this is going to be common or not, but the surges that happen don't seem to last that long. Of course, this is the first race of the season. That Penn Velo is brought back, and then there's a counter that's going, and so they're keeping on the gas. That rider that just went past, that's 666, that's my teammate Steve M. I always made it a point never to be next to him. Reason being that there was a move that was going on up ahead, and we were both in the same location and boxed in, then we would miss it. At the far end of the turnaround, Matt Peters went to the front and I went right on his wheel. This way we could take that 180 before anyone else and not get gapped behind a bunch of riders and then have to pound the pedals to reconnect. Earlier I've spoken about the tactics that Steve M and I are employing. Let's talk about the tactics that Penn Velo was doing. They, as you would imagine, since they had 4 of the pack of 13, would attack. But they just didn't attack willy-nilly. While they did look for opportunities like what was happening now, there's one rider out there and the pack is bringing them back, they picked their spots. And I also noticed when the rider was brought back, they never counterattacked. At first, I thought that was odd, because I was always looking for the counterattack. But when you have teammates like Tim Davis, who came over from Hammer Nutrition last year, and Steve Clifton, those 2 guys can probably get 1 and 2 in this race. So far, and justifiably, I've been focusing on Penn Velo, but I also noted there was some other strong guys in this race. I remember this rider from Alto Velo. He was strong, and he was trying to make things happen, and would actually initiate attacks. There's another guy we call the time trial guy, and there was this other big guy that was looking for opportunities. And still there were others in the pack that were strong enough and able enough to take advantage of any opportunities that may have been presented. This is later on in that same attack. I don't have a clear view of my camera, but I think this is the one that my teammate Steve M went off with a couple other riders, including the Penn Velo, doing exactly what he needed to do. Now, I stated at the beginning that one of the things I wanted to find out was how I compare to the rest of everyone else. And what I learned during this race is that the character of the 65 plus category has changed. It is stronger and much more aggressive. While I'm not displaying any power numbers because I'm using my fancy schmancy wheels, remember, old guy, old equipment, you can tell what's going on with my heart rate in the lower right hand corner. My max heart rate is 164 beats per minute. Looks like we finally slowed down as we made connection with the breakaway group. Looks like once the connection was made, my teammate is coming back to get a little bit of rest after a job well done, so that means I'm going to be vigilant. Remember when I mentioned earlier Pen Velo picking their spots to attack? Look at my rearview camera in the upper left-hand corner. Here comes the Pen Velo right now. And we're coming up to an overpass hill. I immediately knew that I had to go with him because Steve M., who was right in front of me, was still recovering from his effort that he did earlier. That Pen Velo came by me with a lot of speed, so that means I have a lot of speed to make up. Now there's another rider that's going out with him, and he seems to be doing a better job than me, but I know I can't let these guys go. This could be the race. There's a sizable gap to the pack, and so that means that Pen Velo has 3 blockers, and if I make it up there with them, then there'll be 4 blockers. If we can get to the uphill turnaround before everyone else, that increases our chances significantly. Unbeknownst to me, there was a rider that was on my wheel. And I think it's the big guy I talked about, the one that was looking for opportunities. If I was a younger cycling Greek and not so hypoxic, I would have turned around and taken a look at the situation. There's a couple people on my wheel, there's a big gap. I would have gone to the front and shown my commitment to these guys. But I'm not either of those, and I was just hanging on, breathing like a racehorse. You can see my heart rate's at about 152, and so that's about 90%. But alas, there are other strong and smart riders in this pack, and they counterattack. I was hoping to see my teammate's jersey coming across that counterattack, as I was in no shape to do anything about it, and playing the role of blocker seemed much more appealing right now. Jumping ahead a little bit, we're still heading toward the key part of the course, and that key part of the course is, of course, going to be the turnaround that's at the end of a climb. But there's the overpass where I attacked a few years back, which split out the group and got me a pretty good placing. Obviously, you notice another Pen Velo attack. He's trying to take advantage of the course that's coming up. I'm thinking that my teammate is out of position, so I got to go after him, but then I see Steve coming up, and as soon as he goes by, I start to slow up so I can play blocker a little bit. Steve is able to make the connection. There's another couple of riders going across. A few moments later, the rest of the pack comes up. Pen Velo goes to the front and blocks along with me. About 30 seconds later, the breakaway was brought back because they weren't working well together. Remember when I earlier mentioned this is a critical part of the course? Off from the left side of me, we have another attack by a Pen Velo. So now I'm going after him because obviously Steve is pretty reamed from what he did. As I'm trying to connect with this guy, my training has been pretty good, in spite of the fact that I had that injury that I was able to get over in December. That being stated, one of the things that I have not done is any fast group rides. Now again, if I was young cycling Greek and I was in shape, well, as soon as he slows up, I would have gone to the front and shown him that I was committed to this. But of course, I'm old cycling Greek and I'm still getting in shape. Now, as soon as he starts to slow up, I look around and I see that I do have somebody on my wheel and it's one of the juniors. I gladly stay on his wheel because, well, there's really not much else I can do. That is unfortunate as he created a great gap and that was something that we could have worked on. Or rather, more correctly put, that was something I could have helped him work on. Remember, there's a lot of other strong riders. Coming out of my rearview camera, we have another attack, a counterattack. Now he's just kind of going to evenly go off. It's not a huge attack like the other ones, but those are the really sneaky ones too. Matt sees this and he's going with them. I'm still recovering, and I know there's some wheels back there that I can still grab onto as they go past me, so I got a little bit of a buffer, so I'm not worried. Finally, as we get to the overpass hill, I see my buddy Bob for the first time, as he knows what can happen out here. And we have a little bit of an attack going, and I think that may be my teammate up there that's trying to go with it. We have some other people jumping, and so I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. I'm still not going to press the issue. I'm waiting for others to jump ahead so I can get onto their wheels, because this isn't actually the overpass. This leads into the overpass that you'll see in just a little bit. And here it is now. We have a couple riders that are about 4 or 5 seconds ahead of us. When it gets to the top of the overpass, it kind of flattens out and maybe goes a little bit more before it starts to descend. At this point, I stayed nicely tucked in, but it did get a little tough as we crossed over into the top. Soon thereafter, those 2 other riders were brought back. Heading to the top of the penultimate climb leading into the turnaround climb, I see there's a couple riders up there, so I was wrong. We never did catch those 2 riders that had jumped off, so they're still out there. I'm not looking to jump up to them because I can't. I'm just staying nicely tucked in. I'm figuring everyone else will be motivated to go after them. My teammate Steve is not a climber, so I'm kind of wondering about how he's going to survive this, if at all. And again, I was wrong. That was not the penultimate climb. There's some other climbs coming up. We're getting closer now. Apparently it's 3 that are in the breakaway, including a Pen Velo. So there's a Pen Velo in the front, another one kind of right behind him, and they're just biding their time. Eventually, the 3 breakaways are brought back before we get to the top. I'm feeling comfortable enough staying on these guys' wheels. I think we're now past the feed zone and we're another 200 meters and then we'll get to the top and then do a turnaround. Again, I'm thinking about my teammate Steve M. And he is such a motor though in the flats that if he's anywhere close to us after turnaround, he'll catch back on. At this point, I'm following Steve Clifton's wheel. That's a good wheel to be on for a safe turnaround. Now what I'm thinking about is staying on a wheel just in case, and usually what happens is people gun it from the top here because of the descent. A while earlier I mentioned that there was an Alto Velo rider on this ride, and that's him right here. And I didn't realize we had an Alto Velo rider on this ride because its uniforms were brightly colored, and so I was thinking this was another Penn Velo, so I just went with him. He was just kind of sneaking off the front. The big guy looking for opportunities comes across. We now have a break of 3. This is yet another one of those cases that I wish I was stronger than what I actually was. I'll get there, but I'm not there today. The Alto Velo rider was strong. I should have been able to pull through, but I wasn't. I pulled to the side, let the other guy come through, and I got on his wheel. Even though there was no Penn Velo, we had a nice gap. And seeing that I wasn't doing much of anything, and then the other guy was just hanging on at this point, this brake attempt was doomed. Soon thereafter, there was another sneak off the front attack by Penn Velo. There he goes, number 658. This was a great part of the course that my teammate Steve M could have joined him on, but I feared that he was off the back and I'm not going to see him for the rest of the race. So he was out there for quite a few miles and then eventually was brought back. Jumping ahead a little bit, it's now about 10.5 miles to go. The speed has all of a sudden slowed down, and as I look ahead, I can see that a Penn Velo rider has slowed up because another Penn Velo rider and another rider with him is kind of just sneaking off the front. So, nervous about this, I'm going off to the side and seeing if I need to jump to those guys. I always have it in my mind if there's a break that I need to jump to that I don't, that's the one that's going to survive. I finally make the decision and jump to those guys, and now again we have a pretty good gap. Now when I get there, the Penn Velo guy sees that I'm on his wheel, and he lets the Alto Velo guy continue on. I'm not going to go with the Alto Velo guy because that's not a Penn Velo guy, and I've already used quite a few bananas up, and the finish is coming up soon. I'm starting to get concerned about my legs. It is now about 2.5 miles to go. We had the occasional surge and minor attack, but nobody was letting anything go. We've passed the overpass, and now we're into the climbing section. I've not only used some bullets, but I recognized long ago that I'm with a pretty strong group. So I've been trying to conserve as much as I can, but how can you conserve when you're on a climbing section? If we're keeping it even, I'll get to survive a little longer, but somebody's attacking. Now they're joining him. I'm on the edge. It's not that my aerobics are failing me, it's my legs are failing me. My muscles no longer can turn over the pedals as fast as I need to. So these guys start to go on. The situation is there's 9 up the road, there's one behind me, was behind me, now I'm chasing him. I get to his wheel and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to hang on to this guy and then outsprint him at the end. For the last few years when I made race videos on my channel, they were focused on my getting on the podium and occasionally having the opportunity to win. This year looks like there's going to be a bit of a change. The focus is going to be on me getting older and having to deal with those young, damn 65-year-olds. Okay, back to the race on the screen. It looked like I was dropping him, but he got his legs back, came back up to me, and now there he goes. I look around, see there's nobody behind me, so I'm safe from getting passed by yet another person. I let my heart rate drop a bit, and then I start to punch it to go after him. Well, the punching only lasts for just a few seconds. In the meantime, you know the drill. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Give me a like. I need likes. It helps the algorithm. Alright, this is episode 2. I have episode 3 I have to work on. As always, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.